share our stories as lady farmers in regenerative agriculture, and I'm super excited to have Christine Martin here with me from. You have a couple of different names for your publication, Christine. You have the messy middle, which I really love, and then the land stewards. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to us?
Sure. Yeah, I'm Christine Martin. I am a rancher, regenerative rancher in Texas, specifically East Texas. I'm also a educator in holistic management, which is a management framework that helps us address the complexity of managing land, Mother Nature, and all her curveballs, the financial aspect of all of this, while also trying to have that life that we want, right? The quality of life, being able to sit on the porch and enjoy the fruits of your labor.
Sit on the porch.
Sit on the porch. Who has time to do that?
I
Um,
fantasize about sitting on the porch.
yeah. And on Substack, my publication name is The Messy Middle of Regenerative Agriculture, because I focus more on regenerative agriculture. And then my paid tier is called The Regenerative Woman, because I really feel called to supporting the women in regen ag for lots of reasons. We can get into it later. Uh, but my business, my coaching business, is called Thriving Land Stewards, because
Right.
I regenerative agriculture is fabulous, but and we need to restore ecosystem functions and get the land more productive, but we also need to be thriving. We also need to be productive. We need to have a profit. We need to have community to support us. And so I love the word thrive for this concept that everything is working on all cylinders type thing.
I really love that. And I love what you've been bringing to Substack. Like, we have a really fantabulous community of home gardeners and homesteaders, but you bring an element of like farmer and rancher that like, I really love, like personally as a farmer myself. So I'm probably a little biased, but super happy to see you. And why don't you go ahead and kick us off today and start by sharing your story?
My story. I started this, well, so I'm originally born in Argentina, raised in Brazil of British parents. Came up to the States for college. My career started off as an ag commodity trader, and spent some time in Switzerland, and then went to Argentina. And because of socio-political situation in Argentina, I wanted to get back to the States, and I was found a job here in Texas 25 years ago. And when I came to Texas, I part of the recruiting process is they flew me up here. I spent 3 days here, 2 days interviewing, and then 1 day looking at the town that I was gonna be living in. Realized very quickly that it wasn't a town, it was a ginormous city. And
Wow.
I didn't wanna do that. And it was a high stressful job, so I needed space, I needed to ground, just needed
Yeah,
some
absolutely.
simplicity. So I bought 5 acres, and that was what I now called the beginning of my land stewardship. I call it my homesteading phase. So, I got the chickens, I put in the garden, started with tilled garden, then did raised beds and had a permanent chicken coop, and then did Joe Salatin type tractors, uh, got a draft horse,
Ooh.
got a halflinger, learned how to harness it through a picture book that I found on Amazon. And the horse had been trained by the Amish, so the horse taught me more than I could teach. And I got a cart that I used to uh, put in my broadcast seeder and my sprayer and stuff. We got a dairy cow. I got a Guernsey, and we learned how to milk her, and we learned how to make cheese and butter and all that thing. But what what became very important was a few years into this. Um, I I had my first migraine on the trade floor, and it was so bad I took myself to the bathroom and curled up like a baby, trying to get
Goodness.
as close to the tile floor to try and alleviate this
Yeah.
pressure, whatever. So they ended up sending me to the hospital, and the doctor, looked at me and he started writing. He goes, "Okay, here's a prescription for a caffeine pill. Take it when you start feeling the migraine." And I'm like, "No, wait, wait, wait. I don't want to feel like this anymore. What do I do?" He's like, "This is all I can do for you." Well, that didn't sit well with me. Long story short, I realized that the food that I was eating, because I was a single parent at that time, I had this job, I had the kids, activities, so there was a lot of meals that we bought from McDonald's and Kraft macaroni and cheese and all these things that I was introduced to when I first came to the States.
Crazy.
And I realized that the food I was eating what was causing my issue. And more specifically, it turned out that I was very sensitive to soy.
Okay.
And soy is in everything.
Yeah.
Even in
Oh,
chocolate, which I was so disappointed about, the soy lecithin. So, this was 23 years ago now, and it wasn't I the clean food was just not available like it is now. And very simplistically, in my mind, I thought, "Well, I've got 5 acres. Surely I can grow stuff on my 5 acres, even though I had the corporate job, even though I had these kids or whatever,
yeah.
because we like to do these things, right?" Um, and so many of the projects that I tried to do on the place to try and produce my own food, the gardening, the livestock, um, were not successful. And I remember the clincher for me was I would get my W-2 at the end of the year and look, I made pretty decent money, but it wasn't in the bank.
Yes.
And I would look around going, "Well, there it is, and there it is, and there it is," equipment that I bought because I thought I needed it, or I was told I needed it, a project that I got, um, and I hired consultants, and I talked to extension agents, and I talked to neighbors, and I wasn't getting anywhere. I wasn't getting anywhere, and everything changed when I was scrolling at the office on lunch break, and I found an ad on Facebook before when Facebook was the only social media ad. That's dating me.
I remember
And
those days.
and it was an ad for this beginning farmer rancher course that was being put on by Holistic Management International. And it was a 6-month course, and we met for 1 weekend a month. And we were hosted by different operations within the state of Texas that were actually implementing this holistic management, the
Wow.
practices and the principles. And Sam, the aha moments that I had while I took this course just changed the way I looked at everything. And even before I graduated from that course, I knew that I wanted to share this way of thinking and this framework and this way of making decisions with others. uh, and so I went home and started implementing this stuff, and then when I had a little bit more experience, I went through the certification, which was a 3-year certification, and so now this is what I teach. And so what everybody is reading and hearing from me on Substack is this different way of looking at things that I think is more comprehensive than the very reductionist solutions that we get from extension agents, when we
Yeah.
get from YouTube University and all of these things, because everybody's context is different, right? I- I'm at a different age than you are. You're in Maine, I'm in Texas. We're different soil types, we've got different financial situations, we've got different goals. And so my decision is not going to be your decision because of
But
all of these different variables.
with any farm or any homestead or any household,
Anything.
really. Right, exactly. Our unique experience is individualized.
Right, right. And the stories we tell ourselves, right?
Yeah.
Uh, that will impact decisions.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. I love the background that you bring and how you come from this like you come from out of the country and you landed here and you have this corporate background and yet you still wound up farming because it speaks to you like as a person. I really love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, as I shared, it was such a high stressful job that I needed that grounding. I needed to have my hands in the dirt to go, ah,
Wow. People underestimate the power that that brings and just like the calming and the healing. Like I came to it from a traumatic childhood and I needed the healing to overcome, the issues that I was dealing with as I moved into adulthood and it just became a natural progression. But the feeling it's the same thing. I just needed that I needed to be able to breathe and just feel peace.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, so this is what I'm doing now, and coaching coaching land stewards, have been doing it since 2019. Uh, and what I'm finding is women really resonate with regenerative agriculture principles because it honors our feminine. It honors the fact that we are multitaskers, so we can see the big picture, right? Men, I love men. They're wonderful, and we need them, and we need their logic and all these other things. But they're not multitaskers, so they don't understand the big picture many times, and the nurturing aspect that we bring into this,
Exactly.
and the collaboration. One of the things that I'm loving about Substack is the collaboration. There's very little ego, at least with the people I've encountered so far. You and I met on Substack, and I said, "Do you want to get on the live?" And you're like, "Yeah, sure." So that collaboration, and I honestly think after doing this for as many years as I've had, regen agriculture has done a fabulous job of helping us understand that we need to be in relationship with nature and that nature is complex, but we need to bring in that feminine. We need to bring in the collaboration, the nurturing, the intuition aspect,
Yeah.
into agriculture to really heal what needs to be healed.
Yeah. I think that's something that personally, I struggle with a little bit more, just as an introvert. Maybe it's not just me because I feel like maybe there's a lot of farmers who are introverts. That's why we like nature so much, right? We prefer animals over people. Um, but I feel like probably tend to retreat when life gets hard. You know what I mean?
We all do.
Um,
We all do.
yeah. Okay. I'm glad that is not just
Yeah.
me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, we all do. I have done it. But I'm an introvert that has learned how to be extrovert.
I'm
So
working.
I can be extroverted and I can teach and I can be fun and all this other stuff, but then I need to go home, and I'm a good Cancer, so I need to come into my shell and restore myself, and then when I'm ready I pop my head out.
A good thing to keep in mind, probably, yeah. I've been thinking a lot about this pharmacue idea, like a barbecue, but on the farm, so a pharmacue, and I have done a few, harvest dinners in the past, but, when I had partners, so it was shared labor, so now I'm contemplating reaching out to my community and seeing if I can, get some volunteers to come so I can continue my harvest dinner
I'm
idea.
sure you won't have a problem finding volunteers. People love that they're so desperate for that connection. So I host dinners here. I'm in East Texas, so there's I love East Texas, don't get me wrong, but the cultural aspect of East Texas is not there. And I'm coming in from all of these different cultures. So
Yeah.
when I bought my place, I built an outdoor kitchen Argentine style.
Oh,
So I offer Argentine style dinners, which
yep.
end up being yeah, which end up being 3 to 4 hours of meat coming off the grill, and so it's community tables, and I just love, watching the dynamics. These couples or groups come in, and they stay by themselves and chat, but by the end of the evening, everybody's sharing stories and laughter and connecting, and so, but But it's also a way, Sam, for us to explain and to teach people about the quality of the food that we're producing. It never fails. It never fails. Every dinner I do, somebody says, "Christine, what did you marinate this meat with?" And my answer is salt. I put salt on it when I put it on the grill, but what you're tasting is the nutrition that you're getting because I've got ecosystem functions that are working, and so now, if the plant needs that manganese or that copper, that is getting moved, and so the nutrition is what we're picking up on our tongue when we eat that homegrown tomato, when we eat that meat.
Yeah. And I think that for a lot of the community, because they're disconnected
Sure.
from their farms, they undervalue that simple thing of the quality of like the production of the food, like whether it's meat or vegetable. Like, it's unparalleled. You can't get that at the store.
No, you can't. And so these dinners and having volunteer days to come and help and explain is an education avenue to teach these people. I think I shared somewhere on Substack. I sold at the farmers market for 10 years every Saturday for 10 years. And I spent most of my time educating,
Yeah.
not only how to cook a piece of meat that was grass-fed, grass-finished, but also why I do what I do. And, the biggest thing, especially here in Texas, right? Everything in Texas needs to be big. And so I would have these customers and they wanted these big old steaks.
My
And
goodness.
and I purposely, because I'm doing grass-fed, grass-finished, my animals are small, which
Yeah.
means my steaks are not big. And I would tell them, I said, "Okay, my steaks are small. You're welcome to buy 2, but take the 1, and if you're not satiated with the 1, come back and tell me, and then I'll refund the money." And I never once had somebody come back and say, "That did not fill me up. I wish I had had the second one."
Yeah. I can
Because of the nutrition.
Right, they're more nutrient dense, first of all,
Right.
but secondly, like, we don't need the huge helpings that we're
No.
conditioned to believe that we need as Americans, and you go anywhere else in the world, and they have smaller portion. I knew a teenager who did, what do you call it? She went to France. And she came back and that was her remark, was that she got used to eating smaller because we just have these outrageous portions in America. And how gluttonous does that make you feel? Like, we don't need all that, really.
Well, part of it is because of how we're doing agriculture, the nutrition isn't there. So
But
you do need more, but then you're also eating stuff that has, you know, there's all sorts of stuff that has been added to it. So so that
yeah,
creates a whole addiction aspect to it
yeah,
too.
yeah, yeah. So, so you were at farmers market for 10 years and then so you got divorced somewhere along the line and bought your farm that you're at now?
Yes, so uh, I don't mind sharing this, but um, it was a second marriage for both of us. We didn't have kids together, and this has always been my passion. I've always wanted to live a more agrarian life, but I was stuck in this career as a single parent. Blah 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 blah. Um, and when after I took this beginning farmer rancher course, I felt that I had the confidence and the tools and the knowledge to be able to do this for profit. So I got married, a second marriage, and we moved on to his family land. And I was very passionate about how I wanted to do this. And he's like, "Okay, fine, let's do it." Uh, the issue was he went to Texas A&M, a land grant university. He studied agronomy and he studied about springing, Tifton and coastal and spraying, and that's how you
Mindset.
that whole completely different mindset. Um, and so part of holistic management and the way to make effective decisions on the farm, on the ranch, on the homestead is to make sure that we know where we want to go, right? Just like
Right.
if we have a destination, a road trip we need to do, right? We plan the route to get to the destination. So in holistic management, we call that a holistic goal, which basically states this is what's important to me. This is what I need to have in my life to allow that to happen. And this is where I'm moving towards. Um, and one of the exercises, especially when you're in partnership, is to say, okay, you go do this worksheet. I go do this worksheet. What is it that's important to each of us separately? And then come back and say, where is the common ground? What and at first, because he's a man, he's like, I don't need this woo woo stuff. And that, as a good spouse, I'm like, like, we need to do it. We need to do it. So he finally succumbed and said, okay, let's do it. And he went begrudgingly to go do it. And when he finally came back to show me, we had almost nothing in common.
Oh no.
We had nothing in common. Um, and I knew that, but I was hoping. And so
Right.
we discussed it. Yeah, we discussed it and we went through counseling, and finally he had the courage to say, I'm just waiting for you to get this out of your system. And I'm like, okay. you know, Thank you for being honest, because that's the only way we're going to be able to figure this out. And so
Right.
we talked about it more, went through therapy some more, and we finally decided, we really wanted different things. We loved each other, we cared about each other, but we wanted different things. So we decided to divorce. We're still great friends, and I still call him when I have mechanical issues. But so 6 years ago, I divorced and moved on to this new place. One of my criterias was to find a place that was commuting distance from the farmers market that I was attending. Uh, and so I found this property, and because I had had the training, because I had been doing this on our place, I invested in infrastructure to make it easy for me to do this, knowing I was going to be doing this by myself.
That's so smart.
And I had the money at that time. So, but NRCS does help you with some cost share, like cross fencing and water systems and water tanks and a whole bunch. They're actually doing remote callers now.
Oh wow.
They will do cost share with remote callers. Anyway, um, so because I knew what I was doing, because of my training, within 2 years of being on this place, I tripled my carrying capacity.
Wow.
Now I'm raising livestock. I have a garden, but it's for my own consumption, and right now it's looking terrible. But so I've been focusing on livestock. When I moved here, I had pigs. I had the red wattle pigs. I had sheep. I was raising Dorper sheep. I had cattle, and I had pastured turkeys, and I had egg layers.
Holy
And
moly, Steve.
and the poultry were in movable chicken tractors that I moved, and everything got moved, either daily or every 3 days. I had the sheep. I use the netting fence. You've worked with the netting fence?
Okay.
A love-hate relationship, but it was great for this. So I was managing this multi-species, and I will credit the pastured turkeys for helping, because I was using them in tractors, the movable chicken coops, and
Yeah.
the turkeys poop so much, and so that manure was so nitrogen rich.
Mm.
And on social media, on Instagram, there's pictures of where you could see where the turkey tractors have been, because the grass is a deeper green, it's taller, and when you
Yeah.
get up close, the blades are wider. Same
That's
species,
neat.
but yeah.
And I
So
don't jump over the fences like chickens do.
no, turkeys are actually a lot of fun because they will actually talk to you, and you can actually herd them.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you can actually herd them. They're difficult in the brooder. The death loss in the brooder can be rough.
Yeah.
But once you get them out of the brooder after a month onto pasture, they're great.
Oh,
Um,
good to know.
they're really good. Um, so so within 2 years of being here, because I was grazing, I was only giving them an area to graze, and then I didn't return back to that area until it had recovered. And springtime, the recovery that was needed was much shorter than in July and August, where we get droughty over here. Um,
Yep.
and so and by year 3, because I was allowing for this recovery, when we hit that frost, I had all this grass that had recovered that was now available to graze. So it was hay that hadn't been cut.
Nice.
And so I had this stockpiled forage to graze. So
Love
by
that.
year 3, I halved the amount of hay I was feeding over the winter.
Wow.
And then by year 4, I didn't need any hay
Oh
because
my,
all of a sudden I had these cool season grasses come in that hadn't been there, and I didn't seed anything. Everything came from the seed bank.
wow. That's really interesting.
So again, working with nature, restoring ecosystem functions has been the way I've increased my productivity.
Yeah.
And I do get a lot of rain, right? I'm in East Texas, so I get about 46 to 48 inches of rain a year. And which is different than Central Texas or West Texas. They're a lot more brittle. But in the summertime, when I get all this rain, I actually have to supplement a little because all that rain is held in the grass, and so the nutrition drops because now that water has leached all the nutrition. So I can grow a lot of grass, but the animals still need some supplements because it's too watery.
Interesting. Okay. How do you tell that? Like from like body condition?
Body, you can tell body condition, and the manure ends up being really quite runny.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah. That happens. It happens to us over here in the early springtime. And so now
Yeah,
coming out of it, because we're starting to dry up a little bit up here in Maine, but
yeah,
it's really fascinating. I
yeah,
really like what about the different like microbiomes and ecosystems that we have in any given area. And it can be, different from like here to the next hillside. It's really fascinating sometimes how that works out.
yeah, yeah. And it does change. I moved an hour, when I was married, I moved in it was an hour, but I changed soil type. And so I went from a sandy loam to blackland clay, and it was a wake-up call for me. Oh, I've got to work up this differently, especially with the sheep. The sheep really struggled. I ended up having to terminate my sheep enterprise because I couldn't keep the lambs alive.
They are really finicky, aren't they?
Oh, yeah. And so I was losing the lambs. The ewes were fine. It was the lambs, and the ewes would have them, and the lambs would live a month or two, and then I'd come out there and they'd be dead.
Right. Yeah, I just
And
saw them yesterday, actually.
just
Yeah.
dead. So I sent a few of them to Texas A&M to have them do a necropsy to tell me what was causing them to die. And it, they came back saying, "We don't know what it is. It's not tetanus. It's not barber pole. It's not
Huh.
um what's the coccidiosis and all this other stuff." And their recommendation was, well, vaccinate for everything. And that didn't fit my protocol. But I'm not going to do that. So then it was a decision: do I get rid of the sheep, or do I do survival of the fittest, which is very harsh, right?
Hard. Feet on the
Very
heart.
harsh. Very harsh. But again, I'm working with nature. I'm trying to demonstrate to people how working with nature means we have to spend less money and we have a better quality of life. So I decided to do heart survival of the fittest, and it was hard. But after a couple years, I had some pretty sturdy stock,
Yeah.
and
It's,
and and so they were environmentally adapted
yeah.
to my management and my soil and all these other things. but eventually I ended up deciding on getting out of the sheep business because I was using the netting fence, and I was using the two-prong netting fence.
Yeah.
And in July and August, we get no rain, and I've got blackline clay.
So it's
I
stuck.
so I was using a drill bit to pre-drill the holes to put in the netting fence. And
Totally.
when I was breaking more drill bits than I made holes, I said,
Yeah. Yeah, I don't blame you one bit, girl. Oh my God.
so I had a friend who was not on blackline clay soil that took took the whole herd. I miss the sheep. They were a lot of fun, but I'm glad I don't have to that battle anymore.
Yeah, I'm still having mixed feelings about letting the sheep go. They were supposed to go yesterday, but the guy got to Portland and his truck broke down.
Oh.
Yeah, and then I didn't hear from him, so I was like, okay, he's ghosting me. I told him it was a long way. He's coming from Massachusetts, and that's going to be like, depending on where he is in Massachusetts, at least a 3 or 4 hour ride. But he said he wanted them. I was okay. So then his truck broke down. I'm like, and then I didn't hear from him. I'm like, okay, he's done. But he sent me a message this afternoon. He's coming tomorrow morning. So
Okay. Okay.
oh,
Well,
I'm at,
I know it's a hard decision, but it was the right decision for this moment.
yes,
Yeah. You need a truck.
I need something. I need something, anything with wheels, preferably
Good
something,
vehicle. Yeah.
something with, yes.
Yeah.
And I do love the sheep, but it's until I have a better setup or better infrastructure. Yeah, it's just, yeah, this is the right moment. So
Yeah.
you're right.
And there's nothing that to say that you won't have them in the future.
Yeah, I'm not, you know, it's just hard to say goodbye.
It is. It is.
Yeah. So good. Okay. So we're caught up with you, and now like you're at your what? So what do you still have for livestock?
So I have cattle, and I have layers. My pastured turkey enterprise went dead last the end of last year. In Texas, we have 3 processing facilities that will do turkey, or that had been doing turkey. Now only one of them will do it, will process turkeys.
Oh my goodness.
The processor that I had used for 9 years, the week after Thanksgiving, last November, I sent in my dates when I wanted processing for this year, and some chickens, that because I also do broilers also. Um, they came back, said, "Okay, we accept the chicken dates, but we're not doing turkeys anymore."
What's the difference between a chicken and a turkey aside from like the size?
And it comes back to economics and the wear and tear on the equipment.
Oh,
Turkeys are bigger, they can be up to 20 pounds, and some people let them grow to 30 pounds. The plucker and the scalder for most of these poultry facilities are made for chickens, and where you could put 15 to 20 chickens in the scalder, you can only put 1 or 2 turkeys. And then you have to put them through the plucker, and I guess the turkey feet on the turkey feet were really doing a number on the plucker, because I always like to get everything back, but because of USDA regulation, they had to cut the generally we just throw the chicken in the plucker, right? And the chicken with the feet and everything's fine. And then the feet get cut off. With the turkey, because the size of the feet, I guess it was damaging the plucker. And
wow.
so they had to cut the feet off before it put into the plucker. So it added a step. And because of USDA regulation, or at least the interpretation of the inspector, um, I couldn't get the turkey feet back.
Oh my goodness.
Anyway, so and you know, it just, because it's a bigger bird, because it's a little bit more complicated. It just takes them longer to do a turkey than a chicken, and they're looking at cost
Yeah.
and time per animal. So I get it, but my thought was just charge me more because I'm just going to pass it through to my customers because I've developed these customers that want healthy, clean, pasture raised ground turkey and turkey breasts and turkey tenders. So, and the third processor who does turkeys will not cut them up. So they'll do them for Thanksgiving whole. So then I started thinking, well, do I have them process and come back and have all the buyers come and I teach them how to cut? But then, you know, that would probably happen once and they never get rid of it.
Right. Right.
So
Yeah. Oh, and that's the thing. Like here in Maine, we only have a very few number of USDA inspected processors, and so it's a lot of the same struggles for small farmers. Is where do you take things to be processed so that you can legally sell it to people?
yeah, here in Texas, we have an organization called Farm and Freedom Alliance, FARFA, Farm and Ranch Freedom Alliance. And they are huge advocates in Austin. And so they've created these Texas cottage food laws.
Nice.
And one of them is that we can process on farm up to 1,000 poultry birds a year and still sell direct to consumer.
Nice.
So, and then raw milk is now legal, and sauerkraut and fermented foods are now legal. You don't have to use a commercial kitchen to use that. So they've done a great job of advocating for us small farmers.
That's fantastic. Yeah, we have a pretty strong movement up here in Maine. I'm pretty happy with it. Still a disconnect from like retail sales versus what you can sell from your property, but I guess that's fair, right? It's got to be some regulation.
Yeah, we'll see. So,
Awesome.
uh, Sam, you and I are both managing land and all of these different enterprises by ourselves.
Yeah.
What is your biggest struggle as a solopreneur female operator?
Time and energy,
Yeah.
trying to make it all happen with this. I spent the whole morning this guy, like, I didn't hear from him for 2 days about the sheep, so I was like, "Okay, he's blowing me off, I don't know when these sheep are going," so I had kinda held off on moving them, and so then knowing that they weren't necessarily going anywhere, I was like, "Okay, I have to move, they have to have a new patch, right?" So I went and I had to and because I had delayed it for this dude, um then I had to move both groups of sheep in the same morning, so I went out at, like, 8 o'clock this morning, and I didn't come in for my lunch break until 11:30, and moving net fences.
Yeah, it's a workout.
I did have Braytech come out this morning. When we moved the girls, their house is a lot bigger, and BB's the doghouse too, like, I built them too good. So I'm just doing it with a utility dolly, and, so I had him come out he will pull now. I used to do the pulling and he would push when he was younger, but now he's like a grown man, and I'm like, "Use your muscles and save your poor mom a little bit."
That's good. That's great.
So he'll pull and I push, but that's how we move them from one section to the next.
Yeah.
And so I moved the boys by myself, and then I had to run back to the house to get him to come out and help me move the girls. And then this afternoon, I heard from the dude that he's coming tomorrow morning. So,
Yeah.
so they'll be gone, and I'm gonna be sad, but I'll have $2,500 to put towards my truck. So this is good.
That's good. That's good. Think of the positive.
I
Think of the
mean,
positive.
that like all of the energy put into moving. I was listening to one of your podcasts this morning. I tried to listen to it on the field, but there's no Wi-Fi out there. So eventually it got cut off. But it was the one that you were talking to this older lady about holistic management systems. And you were talking about how you had put money into, or maybe it was she did put money into permanent infrastructure. And so then they put a lot of money into fences. And I'm like, that's what I need to do. If I'm going to continue with sheep, I need permanent fences So I can just open the gate and shuffle the sheep through, hook onto the house with a four-wheeler and just move it through and be done with it.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what I did when I moved here, because I knew I was gonna be handling this by myself. Uh, my ex-husband came up with this, suggestion because when I went through this course, I had done chickens all my life. I've had layers for 25 years, but,
Stu
except for the dairy cow and the draft horse, I haven't had much more than that. And the recommendation that I got from the teachers, the mentors that I had in this course was, if you're brand new to this and if you're brand new to the property, work with the animals first for a good year, because then you get to know how the rain flows, wind, where all this stuff is happening on the property, and then figure out m how you move these animals, because in holistic management, we move them we believe that we want the animals at the right place at the right time for the right reason with the right behavior, including the human. And because grass is not the same everywhere, right? You've got poorer areas of your property, and then you've got better areas, right? So we wanna make sure this isn't a rotation, this is we're putting the animals where they need to be most effective. So, when I started with sheep, because sheep were less intimidating than cattle, and I could put them between my legs, and when you start running the numbers, they're much more profitable than cattle.
the
Uh,
sheep.
the sheep are, because you get a crop within 5.5 months, and they're ready within 6 to 7 months, and you get twins or triplets. So, per blade of grass they're eating, the sheep are way more economical. Not now with cattle prices being stupid, right? Cattle prices are stupidly high now. Uh, but that too shall come down. So I had sheep, and with sheep we have to watch for worms, and so famacha, hoof trimming, all this other stuff. And I was moving them on the property. We had 23 acres then, and every time that we had to work the animals, we had to move these panels and make, a safe place to put them, and then a chute to put them through. And we did this 2 or 3 times, and my ex-husband turned to me and said, "We're gonna, this is too much. Let's figure out a way that we can, we have facilities to be able to do this." Because inevitably we would set something up and there would be a gap and they would get out, and it was just like, the stress. And I don't know about you, but when something frustrates me, I tend to procrastinate when then I need to do it next time. And that, that doesn't bode well with livestock care and these
Right.
things. So the 23 acres was a rectangle, and so he decided that what we needed, again with the premise that we want the animals at the right place at the right time with the right reason, with the right behavior. He decided that we were going to cut the rectangle in half, make a lane, so 2 fences to make a lane with gates so that we can be anywhere on the property and put them in the lane, that all led to the working pen.
Yeah,
And because I was processing them every month, I needed to have that working pen, so then I could put them in the holding pen, so I could then back up the trailer to load them into the trailer to go to the processor, because this happened every month.
gotcha.
And And so after the divorce, when I moved here, I basically duplicated the same thing. And
Yep,
I divided my 100 acres into pastures, and put in this lane system, that coincidentally goes with a water system. So anywhere I'm at the property, I have access to water.
nice.
And again, NRCS will help you with that through their EQUIP program. So you need to look into that. Have you worked with them?
Yes, that's how I got my conservation contract.
Okay, but they will go through EQUIP, EQIP. You could get cross fencing, you can get water systems, you can get all sorts of things.
Yeah. I almost
But
got a high school with them, but you have to pay up front for that particular program,
okay.
and they
Yeah.
reimburse you.
Yeah.
So stuff like that
Um,
is prohibitive to me because I never have the upfront funds.
sure.
But
Sure. Sure. Um, so the infrastructure has been very good, especially because I had multi-species, right? I had to sort the cattle, I had to sort the lambs, and the pigs did not last long here because of the blackland clay. They just were tearing up the pastures, and they were being bugaboos. So I said,
so you gotta go.
but the infrastructure is very important, especially when you're doing this regenerative grazing, because you do need to give them access to water to optimize. But it's an investment that will give you a rate of return really quickly because you've got increased carrying capacity and you spend less money on inputs and, you know, think not having to buy hay in the wintertime.
Exactly. Yeah, no, and there's a gentleman who Cold Spring Ranch over here in New Portland. He's raising cattle and he suggested the same thing with the lanes. And then you have the gates for each paddock that open into the lane so that you can herd them. Like that's the ideal plan. But that's a lot of cedar fence posts that you gotta sink and a lot of ideally I'd like to get off of electric fencing so that then I wouldn't have to worry about the grid going down and then just have permanent fences there. So
You can use solar panels. That's what I
I
do.
I
I
have
have a
had
I have a portable, it's a SpeedRite portable. I think it's 2 joules, 3 joules or something. And that's that I use 2, depending on how long the strand is, but I I haven't had an issue.
oh good. And I must have bought too cheap when I first got solar because when I first got here, I bought a couple of little solar chargers from Premier One and they did not keep the sheep in.
Really? Yeah. 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 Some of that is just grounding. They
Yes.
don't have a good ground.
I have learned a lot about grounding since then.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah. 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 So what stories are you telling yourself that's keeping you from doing something?
um I don't know. I'm in like a really funny transition phase of my life, you know, how like when your children grow up and then your farm changes too, because like when they're younger, you have extra help, so you can do a lot of other things. And so now Braytek's growing up, my sister's moved away, and it's just me. And I'm like, you know, I just can't do all of this stuff, and so I'm trying to figure out what's the way through. Like, obviously, I'm not going to give up farming. Let's not be crazy here, but I
It
got to
can
make
look
it.
differently. It can look different.
Right, and it does, like, through every stage of our it's not uncommon, like, you see this all the time with older, farmers, their kids grow up, they move away, they don't wanna farm, and so then all of a sudden, like, what are they doing with the farm,
Yeah.
right? So,
Yeah.
I don't beat myself up for that, I'm just trying to figure out, like, what's the best way to move through, and hopefully I'm not taking advantage of my son, and those sorts of things.
Yeah. Well, at least your son is there with you. My kids are off and doing their thing and they're in a different state and
Poor Braycheck, so he's 19, and he's just, like, so disheartened with the world because it's so expensive for a new like, a new adult to move out on their own, these days, and so he's really frustrated with the state of the world and society and the fact that he has to, like, stay home with mom, and so that kinda eats at him a little bit, I think, and just, not really sure what he wants to do because he sees all of these people like us who are like, "Yeah, we don't wanna work for the corporate system because it's abusive, and that's not really, living our lives,
yeah.
to our fullest," and so I think a lot of kids at his age are in that same sort of situation, and so as a mom, I see that, and it makes me kinda sad that he's in that position, and there's not really anything you can do for them except support them,
So
especially.
what are his natural gifts? What does he like to do?
Good question. Yeah, she's still really enthralled with video games and the internet, just like a lot of other kids his age. So it's so pervasive. It's really hard to.
It is hard. It is hard. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I made a very conscientious effort with both of my kids that we didn't have a TV and we didn't have screen time. And thankfully, not that I did anything right, but thankfully they both have are not my son plays video games, but he's very dedicated to his career and
So he's got a good balance.
so he's got a good balance, yeah. And he's outside doing sports, and actually he was just here a couple weekends ago, and he called to say, "Mom, are you gonna be home?" I said, "Yes." And he goes, "Okay, when I'm gonna come spend the weekend, and I want you to tell me about this soil health thing. What's all this about? Why are you doing the crazy stuff that you're doing?"
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, it was fun. It was fun.
Nice. It's really nice. Like, even I kind of have a feeling that eventually Break Tech will come back around.
They
Like
will.
Rick's
They
fed up with the couples. He's been helping me for ages. He's over it. So, it'll come back around, but it's okay.
well, yeah, and everything that we can do to encourage them. Uh, my daughter was with me when I first moved here because she also needed to correct her life path, and given the situation she was coming out of, it was really good for her to be here and be in nature, but more specifically, to actually do the physical work and get hot and sweaty and be there helping assist the birthing and watch the grass grow and all this other stuff. And it was very healing for her to do that. And so she got a lot of clarity about what she wanted to do.
Good.
But but fortunately, she was with me when before as I was in the process of do implementing all the infrastructure, and I was still working full time, but I was able to work from home, but I was stuck in front of a computer. So she was the heavy labor. Uh, uh, I remember it was July or August, and she came in. She'd been outside all morning, and she came in and she just turned on the window unit on uh, the air conditioning window unit. Sorry for that correction, and just put it on the highest and just got naked and said, "I need to cool off."
Those are the times when I wish Break Tech wasn't living at home.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
We keep a lot of crazy pops in the freezer.
yeah, yeah. So what else? What else did you want me to share?
No. Oh, we were gonna talk about how the holistic mindset impacts our journeys.
Yes, yes. Thank you for that. Yeah, and I say this in all humility because I've been there. When we first move onto land, a lot of us come on with this preconceived idea because we've learned it in school, because we've learned it in college, even if we've done an agricultural type degree, we tend to think very reductionist, right? We see the weeds, we've been told weeds are bad, so we need to eliminate the weeds, right? And so the way to eliminate the weeds is to come in and with the spray and kill it,
Mm,
right? Um,
that's okay.
Not not recognizing that the weeds are actually doing the work for us. They're mining or moving minerals that are deficient in the soil. They're addressing compaction. Are you familiar with the book When Weeds Talk?
No, I haven't read that one.
Ah, you need to get it for your library. It is a book. It's a simple book bound. The price has gotten expensive, probably because I'm telling everybody. It's on Amazon. I've seen it as high as $75, which is ridiculous, but it's a book that tells you every weed and why that weed is there and what mineral it's mining for, what mineral it's trying to balance for.
Ah, because they're all telling us something.
They're all telling us something. So if you don't have the book, get it, because it's very, very helpful if you want to work with nature to restore ecosystem functions. But that that mindset, that reductionist mindset, means that we're always asking how. We want the recipe.
Hey, give
The
us
re-
a step.
but there is no recipe, because first you've got the context. What works for you in Maine is not going to work for me in Texas. Even in Texas, what works for me in East Texas is not going to work for somebody in Central Texas or West Texas, because completely different environments, and my context, my financials, my goals, all of these things, my quality of life desires is going to mean that we all have all these variables. And yes, we may be passionate about living off the land and producing our food, but I find, especially with the homesteaders. And I say this because I was a homesteader and I know it. We want to do everything ourselves. We want to be self-sufficient. We want to be self-sufficient. We think we can do it all. And the reality is, especially when we're first timers, there's absolutely no freaking way we can do it all.
No,
You
there's
know,
no
the
way.
the learning curve is high, and the labor and the mistakes, it is costing us a fortune, not only with time, but also with finances and with that emotional capacity.
Hmm.
You
That's
know,
a big.
we decide that we're gonna get guinea hens because we've learned that guinea hens are good for mosquitoes and bugs, but we don't account for the fact that guinea hens are loud as can be, and they'll get into everything, right? And you buy these guinea hens and you raise them, and then all of a sudden they're gone because they want to be in your neighbor's three houses down's
What?
place.
Goddamn.
So, when we make these decisions, we're thinking this is what I want in this is a problem. I'm going to fix this problem. And we tend to look at things. Let me restate this. When we're making a decision, so many times we're addressing the symptom and not the root cause.
Mm.
And so what happens when we are only addressing the symptom is we're going to keep addressing this until we figure out that it's not working.
Right.
Right? The weeds are an example. On pastures, especially on hay fields, they don't want any weeds. So every year they've got to go in and spray herbicide. And because they're spraying herbicide, that means that every year, following year, they keep having to spray more, because now they're destroying ecosystem function and the biology in the soil. And then they complain, oh, we're not making any money. Well, spraying the weeds is a symptom. They're
Right.
addressing the symptom. The weeds are there because likely ecosystem functions aren't working, because there's bare ground, because there's no disturbance, because there's no biology, because Mother Nature does not like to be naked. So she throws weeds up to protect herself. And
Yeah.
this is what we do in everything. We think, I'm not making enough money. I'm raising the cattle, I'm raising the sheep, I've got the egg layers, and I'm doing broilers. I'm not making any money. So my solution is, let's add something else. You know, bees are how I'm going to make all the money.
Hey,
And
they
now,
worked for a long time.
and I'm not saying that they're not, but this, we're addressing a symptom instead of addressing the root cause. And the
Yeah.
root cause could be, you don't have time to make the existing enterprises work really, really well.
Right.
Okay. Or in each of these enterprises, and I will almost guarantee that in each of those enterprises, we have a weak link. That old adage that the chain is only as strong as the weakest link. In every enterprise, there is a weak link.
Yeah.
And we're
Yeah.
not paying attention to that weak link. And so we're throwing money at things that are not addressing that weak link.
Yeah.
And then we get frustrated that all the things that we're doing isn't working because we're not addressing the root cause, we're not addressing the weak link. So this is the aspect of holistic management is let's make sure that we're addressing what really needs to be addressed, considering all of the variables.
Mm.
One of my personal pet peeves is regenerative agriculture principles are fabulous. There's 6 principles and they're great. But the takeaway most people get from regenerative agriculture is that cover crops fix everything. I have had so many clients that are relatively new to the land and they're going out and buying a no-till drill, which is expensive enough as it is, and they're going out and they're buying a 10, 12, you know, species cover crop mix, and they spend the time, they use the fuel, they use the labor to go in and drill in this cover crop. And then they're surprised that germination rate is poor. Because if we think of the actual context, there's a seed bank in the soil.
Right. It's
If
already
the
there.
if it's already there. If the seeds are not germinating, it's because the soil environment isn't there to allow those seeds to germinate.
Exactly.
Why do we think that adding more seed is going to make them germinate?
That's a good question. Sounds a little arrogant of us.
And I'm glad you said it because this is why we're in the situation that we're in, which is why regenerative agriculture is so important because our humans simplistic mind of we've got to have the production, we've got to feed the world, we've got to have, the conversation in the diner for most farmers is, what was your yield?
Right.
What was your yield? It
All about
wasn't, but it wasn't about how much it cost them to get that yield.
yeah.
Yeah. They don't talk about they complain about the rain or they brag about I got an inch, but they're not saying how much of that actually infiltrated in the soil.
Mm. Well, they don't really connect the two, it seems. Like
No.
so many of us just are missing, like, yes, we're facilitating these things, but we're not in charge.
Yeah. So it's that human control, it's that human attitude that I know best without recognizing that nature and you add in finances and you add in a quality of life, it gets very complex very quickly.
It sure does.
And every season is different because rainfall is different, because our soil is different, especially if we've been very extractive about it.
Yep.
So, holistic management is recognizing that there are no parts in nature, everything is interrelated. Everything has a ripple. You make one decision, you make one management action, and there's a ripple effect. And we don't pay attention to the ripple effect, which is what we're feeling now. The increase in people that have a chronic illness, right? In 1965, 4% of our population here in the US was sick, had a chronic disease. Now, 45% of our children have a chronic disease.
Oh my goodness.
Right? And then you start making the association, well, where's the chronic disease happening? Yes, maybe vaccinations, but primarily from agriculture because we're not producing nutrient dense food because of our extractive agricultural methods. That the soil that we had, the soil that great granddaddy had, is now dirt because
Right.
we've killed all
Step.
the biology
Yeah. And all the food is made with soy.
and all the food is made with soy. So, yeah. The framework is very comprehensive. My biggest aha about the holistic management framework is how to make a decision that honors that holistic goal, where we want to be, how we want to live our life, what's important to us, is addressing a root cause. Is there a weak link that we're doing? What options are available to address this? What is it going to cost us?
Mhm.
Is it going to create the profit? Is it going to move us towards our vision? And then finally, what does our gut feel? I've tested decisions that it passed all of these, but it came to gut, and I'm like, you know what? It just doesn't
That's
feel
correct.
right.
Yeah.
You know, and it could be I have to do more research, or it could be, yeah, this is the right decision, but not for now.
Right. Exactly.
And we're dealing with a very complex environment. Any one of us who are living off the land and producing off the land, Mother Nature is going to throw us these curveballs, which again, there's no recipe in what we're doing. There's only principles that we can adhere. And holistic management embeds the permaculture principles, embeds the regen ag principles, but it's a framework to help us manage this complexity.
I like that. Well, you've given me a lot to think about today, Christine. It's been a
Well, I'm
rough week.
happy to do follow up. I'm happy to do follow up and answer any questions, not only from you, but the listeners. Um,
We should check in with the chat real quick. If anybody has any questions, comments, and you want to drop them in the chat, now is the time. We have about 19 people with us today. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Um, Welcome to the land of processed food. We need more urban farmers. And Litka's Words is here. As kids, we would all just pluck and turn the dial plucker behind the hard work. Yeah, for sure.
yeah, when I was homesteading, the chicken processing was a homeschooling activity. At that
Yeah.
time, I was homeschooling my daughter, so all the kids in the homeschool would come in and help, and we would do the chicken with the chicken running around with the head cut off, and squeezing the bird, and it would make its quacking sound or whatever the sound is.
Yes, when I first learned how to process chickens, I actually learned on a duck. And I guess I cut it just right so that every time I stuck my hand up in there to get yeah, it quacked. So I was just mortified. Like, God, it was so terrible.
Yeah,
And don't ask me to do bunnies. I cannot do, but I
yeah,
decided that's fine for me. I can't bop them on the head. They're too soft and cuddly.
yeah, yeah. Thankfully, I've never had to process bunnies. Um,
Chickens on I hate you chickens. So you can just, yeah, go in the stew pot. That's where a chicken belongs.
if I may share, for those listening here live or on the replay, on Thursday, I am doing a workshop within my Regenerative Woman paid tier, and it's basically addressing what could be keeping you from making progress on your homestead, on your farm, or on your ranch. And so it's going to be an interactive workshop, and we'll start with defining what your goal is, because that is super important, right? If this is for self-sufficiency or if this is for profit, then your decisions are going to be very different.
Exactly.
And then we'll go from there to figure out what's keeping you from making progress and making the decisions you need to be making.
Nice. I know you're the person to lead that workshop.
It's fun. I enjoy, and again, I am not an expert. I only know what I've learned from the School of Hard Knocks. But because I've been there, done that, it's easy to guide others to keep from doing what I did.
Right. Yeah, that's where all my advice comes from too. Don't do this thing that I did over here and did wrong. Do this thing over here. It might work out here.
But some of us have to do it because this is how we learn, right? We could have all sorts of people tell us, but until we're like, yeah, you were right.
Absolutely. Yeah, I guess I should have listened to you that time.
which is why I called it the messy middle,
I love
because we have no recipe, right? We've got to try it, and some of us have to do it ourselves. And then, but the reason I asked you about what story you tell yourself is I don't know if you've done this, but I know I've certainly done it. If I've made so many mistakes, it kind of created a conditioning in me. It's like, I don't want to make a mistake anymore. So now I'm overthinking. Now I'm over researching, and then I don't make any decision because the previous mistakes gave me trauma, or I didn't want
it.
to have to go through that again.
Yeah, it comes back and it haunts us.
Yeah,
It-
yeah,
I have to work really hard sometimes at putting the past behind me and not listening to, the negative voices in my head. And some days it's easier than others, but that's just another part of the journey, I guess, right? To some
yeah.
degree. We're always
And
gonna have to fix that.
that's the other aspect that I spend a lot of time is the human our humanness is something that, as farmers, as women, we do not do a good job at, is taking care of ourselves.
Right?
We're givers and we're nurturers and we're so passionate about what we're doing, but we I share this often. We cannot regenerate land when we come from a depleted state.
Right.
So our self-care is very important, right? Nervous
Like,
system regulation, being in the right frame of mind, recognizing, being self-aware when we're tending. I'll share a quick story. Um, Pasture turkeys had been my biggest revenue source. And in 2023, when the economy was starting to get rough, all of a sudden, pasture turkey sales started dropping off.
okay.
But I'm doing all these things, and so inventory management was not something that I was paying attention to. I could tell that my sales were off because I felt it in the bank account.
Hmm.
I was like, oh, I don't have enough money to pay bills. Um, and then I came back from processing a batch and went to put them in the freezer, and I'm like, oh, I don't have enough space for all this stuff. So that was my first wake up call. And and first of all, I didn't understand why I had so much because, I had been able to replenish because sales were so good. But I learned something about myself then, that when I get into financial stress, I am really, really good at disconnecting and not paying and much rather go stream Netflix and watch Outlander than address the problem.
Yeah.
I needed to disassociate, which doesn't help solve the problem.
Hey,
And because of what so when I started paying attention to, then I was so tunnel vision about, I need to make money, I need to make money, how do I make money, that I ended up missing a whole bunch of opportunities that were happening in my blind spot, because my blind spot just got wider because I was so tunnel vision. How do I pay the next bill? Instead of being able to sit back and say, okay, what can I do, to and it wasn't until a friend came by and we started talking and she turns to me, she goes, Christine, you have a commercial kitchen. Just turn all of this stuff into value added products.
exactly. Yep.
And value added products, most customers want anyway, because everybody's forgotten how to cook and they want the convenience. And so margin is super better. That's not that's very poor English and grammar, but the
You
margin is
get the
much
point.
higher.
Uh,
Um, But it meant that now I spent 2 days out of my week in the kitchen, and I love cooking, but I don't wanna do it as a job, So, but it was I had to recognize that this is my habit, this is my conditioning, whatever, that when I get into financial stress, it's easy not to open the bills, it's easy to just not pay attention to it instead of figuring out how to solve it.
Yep. Yeah, who wants to open the mail?
especially when it's all bills.
Bills, yeah. Or my sister's mail. We get my sister's mail here, and so, like, 3 out of 4 envelopes is for my sister. Like, "Okay, that I don't have to worry about that one."
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, Christine, goodness, we have been talking for over an hour, chica. I think probably we should wrap this up.
We should probably wrap it up. Thank you for letting me go on and on and on and share.
Oh, it's been fabulous. I find it fascinating. Like I said, it's really interesting to hear other farmers' journeys and how, they got here and just to be able to learn from your experiences and vice versa. So it's always really interesting. And I'm super happy to have you here and to see you sharing the holistic side of things and that just another partner in regenerative agriculture. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I've been looking forward to it, and as I expected, this has been a fun conversation.
Yeah, and we'll definitely have to do it again. I
Yes.
think follow-ups.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Christine. You take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.